It's a new year, and in many cultures, this means a fresh start. It is time for goal setting and planning for the year ahead. So today, instead of having a guest, I am going old school with a solo episode to dive deep into the 3 components of thoughtful goal setting. If you find this episode valuable, I hope that you'll join the Skills Accelerator, which is my signature program for managers who are ready to improve their mindset, skills, and behaviors to become a rockstar manager with a thriving team. Every month, we focus on a different component of management so that you're continually learning and applying what you've learned with all the support you need to be your best self and do your best work. This month, we are focusing on goals with an action-oriented workshop, workbooks, community, and so much more, all to help you set yourself and your team up for success to achieve your goals, whether they be with a work context or professional development or anything else. It's not too late to get in on the action and start your year off with strong goals. So head over to themodernmanager.com/skills accelerator to learn more and make the investment in yourself and your team. And if you work for a government or a nonprofit agency, you get 20% off the program. Check the show notes for the link or head to themodernmanager.com/skills accelerator. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. In my experience, it is easy to set goals and hard to accomplish them. We can throw out a vision or a target, give it a due date, and jump right in. But the truth is that if you don't have a clear goal, it is so much harder to achieve. So today we're going to unpack how to set thoughtful, strategic goals. And if you're a member of Podcast Plus, you get the extended episode where I share more about the goal-getting mindset that I have used to help make my goals happen. I also want to say that goals don't need to be these huge projects or annual targets. We can and should set goals for many aspects of our work. It could be as big as increasing customer satisfaction by 10%, but it could also be as simple and mundane as what you're going to get done today. And when we take this broad view of setting goals and then apply the goal setting and goal getting techniques and mindsets, we can accomplish a lot more with less friction. Now, there are dozens of different approaches to goal setting. We've got OKRs and SMART goals and backwards goals and tiered goals. I could go on, and if you've done any research on goals, you probably could too. And I have tried a number of these over the years. And when I am doing my best work, which, let's be honest, I am not always good at following my own approaches, but when I am, I found that there is consistently really 3 things that are necessary for crafting thoughtful and strategic goals. So let's go into those. First is the objective. Before you get to the specifics of the goal, you have to know why it matters. We need to understand how this goal ladders up to the larger aspiration we have. This might be a company goal or a vision that we're connecting it to, or a personal intention or a growth goal. But without knowing the bigger picture, it is too easy to set goals that are great in and of themselves, but actually don't move the needle on what matters. And on occasion, you might even discover that there's a better way to accomplish your vision than what you had originally thought about for your goal. For some folks, starting with the goal and then thinking backwards is easier, like using your 5 whys. Maybe you know you want to release the next version of your product. Great. Start there and ask yourself, why? What is this next version going to do for you, for your team, for your organization, for your customers? Then you keep asking why until you've uncovered that central reason. For example, maybe it's intended to grow your business, or improve the customer experience, or reduce your ongoing operating costs. That level of understanding will ensure that when you craft your goal, you're designing the right measures for success. And that's the next component, what success looks like. This is where more detail, more clarity, more specificity really matters. I'm going to digress for a minute here. When I was in college, I went to art school, and I loved photography. Black and white with a film camera, spending time in the darkroom. I also loved ceramics. And the processes for these 2 media are so different. There are a series of steps with photography. Each one is discrete. You take your photo, done. You mix your chemicals, done. You shine your light through the film onto the photo paper, done. You can have a general idea of what you want your photo to look like at the end, but you can't really tell how it's coming along until you see the finished product. But with ceramics, you could work and rework that clay almost infinitely until you get the exact shape you imagined. So if you weren't really imagining anything and you didn't have clarity in your mind of what you wanted to make, it was really hard to know when the piece was done. And honestly, often ended up kind of being a boring or awkward piece of pottery or sculpture. With photography, I could get away with having a semi-formed vision for what I was making, but not with ceramics. I need to sketch it out, really envision the shape, the curves, the size. And if I only said that I wanted to make a bowl, a generic bowl, it might be a great bowl. But if I knew that I wanted to make a serving bowl for pasta or a cereal bowl, that gave me more clarity on what shape and size and what a successful bowl would look like. So knowing exactly what I wanted the finished product to be helped me make the right choices along the way. All of that is to say that we don't want any ambiguity in our goals, because that's when we and other folks on our team who are working towards these goals can get stuck with not knowing what to do or making the wrong choices. Just like with the clay, if we aren't crystal clear with what success looks like, we may not know what tasks to complete, or worse, do things that are ultimately a waste of time or resources because we have a general sense of what we're doing and where we're headed, but not the clarity to really know what's needed. Now, the other problem with fuzzy goals is that they can create conflict with our colleagues because we're imagining different things. A while back, I had a guest on my show, Brian Fox, who talked about having your team imagine the color blue and then name what color blue they were imagining. Yes, we were all imagining blue, but you might discover that one person is imagining navy and someone else is imagining baby blue. This is what happens when we're not crystal clear about our goal. Here's a real example. When I asked my team to put together an email campaign to promote the Modern Manager Skills Accelerator, it was a new thing for us, and we didn't have a model to build off of and replicate. So when we first started, we were imagining different things. I was imagining a series of 6 emails. My colleague thought maybe we'd only have 4, and neither of us were wrong. It was just that we needed to get on the same page because we don't want the work to be bumpy ahead. And if we didn't discover this discrepancy until we were already deep in the work, it would just make things more complicated. So clarifying success is essential. And we can do this step even if we're handed a goal from our boss. I like to do this by asking a few questions of myself or with my team, or even to my boss again. How will we know when this goal is done? What measures or metrics or targets are important to hit? What does complete look like? Is there a model, a sample, or an example that depicts what we're aiming for? And what numbers are important? The budget, the timeline, the quantity. And lastly, are there any must-haves versus other factors that are just nice to have? After getting clear on what success looks like, the next factor that I have found to be really useful is brainstorming what could go wrong. What might get in the way of us accomplishing this goal and hitting our measures, including the timeline and budget? Do we have the right resources available? What other projects are competing for our time and attention that could interfere? By thinking about these things early, we can often avoid running into those problems, saving ourselves and our team members lots of time and stress. And again, this is true for scheduling your weekly and your daily goals. When I decide what I'm going to accomplish this week, I always start by looking at my calendar to figure out how much time I can realistically dedicate to those goals. And if I've set my goals too high, I have 2 options. I can either adjust my goal to fit the capacity that I have, or adjust my schedule to increase my time available. If you're looking at a bigger project, like redesigning your employee handbook, you might identify a few watchouts, like how long it could take to get approval from senior management, or what happens if you're not able to announce the policy changes by the end of the year. You then use these warnings, watchouts, unintended consequences, and potential problems to both ensure the goal you've set is still the right goal, and also to shape the steps that you're going to take to accomplish the goal. If you anticipate that senior leadership is going to give you some trouble, maybe you decide to share a draft earlier in the process than you might otherwise have. That way they can provide input while things are still taking shape, rather than having to sell them on it later. Or if you're worried about the timeline, maybe you prioritize working on the changes that will impact the employees on the calendar year so that at the very least, those could get announced on time, even if the other announcements have to come later. Whatever process you use to craft goals, I hope that focusing on these 3 components of thoughtful goals will give you the clarity and give your team the ability to accomplish great things in the days ahead. I hope that 2024 is your best year yet.